right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special episode of Vaporword Podcast with, and Mike, since you missed it last week, Chubb Boys, Walton Rest Pass. But Peach is not with us today. Where's Peach at? Did he die? Like, is he dead? Our topic this week is going to be video games, and we know how well Peachy knows wrestling. So he's just as good on the video game side of things. So we wanted to, he didn't want to jump in on this topic and kind of overpower the entire conversation with his wealth of knowledge. But with Peachy not here this week, I'm actually really excited with the special guest that we have on this week. So let's check to see, is our special guest here? Special guest, can you hear us?
No.
No? Okay, good,
No.
good. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the voice of the one Mr. Greg Hall from We Podcast and We Know Things. Greg, how are you doing today, sir?
Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm doing well. It's a little past my bedtime, but that's okay. It's not. We record at 7 a.m, so it's different to record now.
Yeah, the three of us have really weird work schedules that don't work out at all. So we like to record Sunday nights.
That's fine.
Respace, how you doing today? Just we'll get the pleasantries out of the way.
Yeah, I'm fantastic. Thanks for asking me before Greg. It was nice.
Well, it's more important to ask Greg than you. Let's be real.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So, Greg, for those that are unaware, hosts his own podcast called We Podcast and We Know Things. Mr. Respass over here was fortunate enough to be a guest on that a few weeks back when they were discussing their Money in the Bank predictions at a winery, which was great because I got to listen to a bunch of people talk wrestling and get drunk at the same time. So, Greg, thank you for hosting that, and that was a great event you guys had.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was difficult to get drunk on the show. We did 8 interviews. We did 8 interviews in that 2-hour span, and I just kept drinking during them. So by the third one, we had a stand-up comedian named Letice. She came on the show and she called me out right in the middle of it because I guess I was googly-eyed or slurring my words or something, and she was just like, "You're drunk. You're out of this conversation. Sam, you're holding yourself up," my co-host. So that was a fun story. But by the time Mike came on, Mike was the last segment of the show. I was already halfway to the wind by that point. I had no idea what was even going on. I thought Money in the Bank had already happened, It was crazy.
Yeah, it was very obvious. It was very obvious how drunk you were. I'm pretty sure we started talking before we even started recording.
Yeah, I don't even know what happened that day.
Man,
I got home that day. I took a nice nap. I fell asleep at like 3:30. I woke up at 7, and I didn't feel a headache until the next morning. So that's how I know I shouldn't drink.
I'm currently, as tradition for our podcast, I'm usually hungover for it. So that tradition continues with me today. But so since Peachy wasn't here, we asked Greg to come on because our topic this week, like I said earlier, is we're discussing wrestling video games. And if you guys get a chance, listen to We Podcast and We Know Things. They talk a lot of video game stuff on there, which is perfect for me. Greg, at some point, I want to have a discussion with you on which game you're picking up. Let's Go Pikachu or Let's Go Eevee. But that's a whole other side thing that we can get into.
Well, before you go too far, Walt.
Okay.
We'll stick with the We Podcast and We Know Things. I thought you were going to let him introduce it before you got into the episode, but that's fine. At some point, Greg, like I did on yours, plug it whenever the hell you want. I actually talked to Sam this morning, and Greg has no idea what I'm about to say, I think, unless Sam talked to him.
No.
We already talked about doing your top 3 from your episodes later.
Yeah.
I had planned on doing trivia, too, since I'm sure it's a lot of people's favorite part. I got Sam's blessing to allow Walton to answer for him if you wanted to continue this on your show. I'm not putting you on the spot, but I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. So I have 2 trivia questions for both of you. Again, if you want to include this in your scoring, we'll play it the same way you guys do. It is a normal question. They're both wrestling related, not wrestling video game related.
So,
and
like,
for
real
those
fast,
of you that don't know, because Walton, you might not know,
go
Do you want Greg to describe the trivia? Or
Well, I was going to say, Greg, if you want to just describe what you guys do on your podcast
Yeah.
every week, it's a really fun thing that it kept me entertained through a couple ones. Like last week, you guys did the Breaking Bad question, which I had no idea about because I never watched it. But you want to like set up what we're doing here?
Yeah, we have a bunch of weekly recurring segments on the show, pick of the week, weekly top 3 lists, and whatever the heck we want, or our listeners. We open it up to the listeners a lot. But something that we take a lot of pride in and have a lot of fun with is our weekly trivia section where we do sometimes it has to do with something in our show. Sometimes it has absolutely nothing at all to do with anything in the world. And that's usually when we wake up in the morning and haven't had a question yet. And we'll just come up with something as we're taking our morning shit. And so it's like, okay, how do you want to do this? Okay, 1st to 11, win by 2. That's how we did it on the playground. That's how we're doing it now. So we stick to that regiment. So it's 1st to 11, win by 2. If you get the question straight away, it's 1 point. If you need multiple choice answers, we give 4 multiple choices. If you get it right, you get a half a point. Sam has actually won the first 2 rounds of the trivia challenge, which pisses me off to no end because I'm ultra competitive. I blew a 4.5 point lead on him. I was up 9.5 to 5, and I blew it.
That is rough.
Yeah, it is rough, but I'm winning now. We're on the 3rd leg of it, and I'm winning now. But just to catch up to him, it's going to take me till mid-2019. So, because we only do 1 question a week, so it's a long grind, but something that's a lot of fun. We've had people comment on our Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff with like their answers and other trivia questions for us. And we've had fun things where if we have a guest on, we'll ask them the trivia question and count it towards our own points and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, let's get that competitive nature going. So, what do you got for this, Mike? I'm excited.
Well, first, Greg, you should have said spoiler because I haven't heard who's won the second one yet. So thank you. I haven't gotten to that point.
You're the guy though. You're the one person on Earth who's listening to our episode 40. We're on episode 97, and you're on episode 45.
Now I'm in like 65 now. Actually.
Oh, you're on 65.
Yeah,
it's still like
I've been
8
working
months
hard.
ago. It's crazy of all the stuff we talked about 8 months. I can't even remember. I go back sometimes and I'll listen to our shows. Like if it's like super late at night and I'm playing like Super Nintendo or I just can't sleep or whatever, I'll pop on like an old episode because Sam puts me to sleep a lot. So I'll pop on an old.
He
one
does
and
have a
listen to
beautiful voice to fall
it. He
asleep
is the
to.
best damn voice in the business. And damn, dude, I'm like, we talked about that? That was my opinion? My opinion changed in 6 months. I can't believe it, how untopical that is. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Sorry for spoiling that for you, Mike.
It's okay. That's fine. I did actually skip over part of this week's or I guess yesterday's episode. Well, right now it's probably if you're listening to this when it dropped, it's Tuesday at noon. So we're recording this Sunday night. Saturday was when you guys recorded. So I skipped over it just to see who was winning. So I did see you I believe, just got a half a point. You're up 3.5 to 1 is what I have written down.
It might be 3.5 to 1. I think. Oh, it is. It's 3.5 to 1. Yeah. I had a question that he totally missed, and I even said the answer in the intro of the show just to see if he was listening to me, and he still got it wrong. And then I got his right, but I don't remember what his question was. But yeah, it's 3.5 to 1 right now. So
it's a pretty cool thing that you guys do every week.
Yeah, I kind of gave Walton a little bit of heads up. I might try to do it. I said I wanted Sam's blessing first before kind of throwing it on you. I didn't want to, take your guys' thing, but I also wanted a little bit of crossover. It's your show's thing.
People
make
said
it a little
Infinity
different.
War was the most ambitious crossover ever, but I would say the Apron Work and We Know Things podcast is a bigger event.
I hope this doesn't end the same way.
Well, there's 3 of us, so it's impossible for half of us to fade.
Well, one of us is already gone. 2 actually. Peachy and Sam are already gone.
Yeah. So what are your questions, Mike? Let's move on to what we got here for the questions.
Okay. I actually had a different question for you, Walt. I will start with Greg, but I had a different question for you. I gave Jess that question, asked her the multiple choice. She got it right away. I said I have to change it because if she's getting it right, you're definitely going to. But I'll start with you, Greg. This is going to be, I have to be focused here. It is a question about the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. As we know, Stone Cold Steve Austin has won it 3 times. Mm-hmm. He won it back-to-back years, his first and second year. In those 2 years, the Royal Rumble was not the main event. There was certain singles matches were both in the main event. Had one guy in both of those matches, the same guy in both those years. Who was it?
And
Good question. Great question.
that's a good question. And was that what, like 96, 97-ish? Somewhere around there, I think it was.
I thought it was
That's-
97, 98. Yes, I'm
Stone
trying to
Cold
help you,
won it
Greg.
both those years. That's why I was trying to stay away from the year.
Yeah, that's how I'm trying to narrow it down. 97, 98, I think it would be. It like screams Shawn Michaels to me, but I don't. I also don't want. As tradition on my show, I hate like wanting to know the answers. I try to get it right away, and like I want to go with my gut, so I'm going to stick with Shawn Michaels.
That is correct.
Yes.
I was hoping you went multiple choice, but yes, that is correct.
What were the multiple choice answers? Let's see if any other ones were plausible.
It actually was going to be Shawn Michaels A. So when you were saying, I was like, nice, because now you're going to think I'm saying this on purpose.
Yeah, that's the problem with our show. Like, if we say our answers that we're thinking out loud, it always happens to be one of the other person's choices. But
Yeah, I had Bret Hart B,
yeah, that would have been tough.
Psycho Sid C, and The Undertaker D.
The Undertaker and Bret Hart were the other two that popped in, so
Yeah.
that would have been, if I took it, I'd have gotten it wrong because I would have second guessed myself. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, Bret Hart was actually eliminated by Stone Cold the first time he won it. He was the last guy. But he did actually, the Royal Rumble was not the main event for 3 straight years. The year before, I believe, Bret Hart was in it. So it was just weird because it doesn't happen very often that the main event is not the Royal Rumble. So the first 2 years Stone Cold won it, him that actually not being the main event, I thought was interesting in itself.
Technically, this year the Royal Rumble wasn't the main event. It was, but it just wasn't the male Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
Which was weird. Third
That
match
was-
on the
Oh,
card.
you mean no? I thought Ronda Rousey was the main event of that pay-per-view.
Oh, well, her pointing class?
Yes.
She just stared and pointed in an oversized Roddy Piper leather jacket.
I listen. It was so awkward to watch, but it was so cool to see it afterwards. Like, because she was so
you guys
happy.
there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we actually got moved. Our seats got moved. We were in camera seats, and we got
that's
to
it.
move all the way down and sit in front of. We actually talked about this last week. What was his name? Walt, the rapper.
I forget. Little Sweezy or like,
That is definitely not right.
I don't
The guy
know.
who sings Panda, if you know that song, Greg, the rapper.
Panda?
Yeah,
No.
where it's a bunch of gibberish and he says Panda in the middle of the song.
Nah,
I-
like I'm an emo kid, so
Yeah, I trust me. I don't know who he was. We had to look it up. It was like on TMZ that he wasn't at an award show and
Yeah.
he was at Royal Rumble.
He was at the
instead.
Grammys. Yeah, because the only reason
that's
why is I was in the background of one of those videos when Adam Cole was the surprise entrance, and you just see me going Adam Cole, baby, in the background.
that's so sick.
Yeah.
Nah, we pop so hard. My wife and I, we love that stuff. She watches wrestling with me 3 times a week and every single pay-per-view.
Jesus Christ.
She cries every title change, and it's amazing to watch because she hated wrestling when we first got together, and then I just stuck with it and kept watching it no matter what. And she one day was sitting down on her phone, and Naomi had won the title, and she looks up and she sees Naomi win the title, and she's crying, so she starts to tear up. And I'm like, "Are you watching this? Did you put your phone down?" And since that night, she's been hooked, and 3 times a week plus every pay-per-view. She hasn't missed a Raw, SmackDown, NXT, or pay-per-view since 2015.
Jesus Christ. She might be our guest next week.
She should probably be running the show.
Yeah, she could probably talk circles around a lot of folks when it comes to wrestling. She's really good. She needs a little help on the NXT. She does not watch 205 Live, but like the Raw, SmackDown stuff, she's super, super into it.
That's awesome. All right, Mike, I'm now excited. What's your question for me?
This one is not as interesting. Sorry, Walt.
You're an asshole.
It is about WrestleMania, the pay-per-view, not the match.
Okay.
I already got you confused. I'm sorry, Sam, for doing this to you. Which state, other than California, has hosted the most WrestleManias? And we are counting all 3 from, I believe it was WrestleMania 2, where they had 3 locations. We are counting them.
Okay.
So which state has hosted the most WrestleManias to date. Not next year. It's not counting.
Florida's up to 3. I know that. Jersey is a possible one for me because you had MetLife and then you had at least 2 at Caesar's Palace. I don't know if there was a 4th one. I'm going to go with Jersey.
Jersey? No multiple choice. You're going with Jersey?
Going with Jersey.
You are incorrect, sir.
Fuck!
Jersey was my guess too.
Yeah.
That was my guess too.
I will go through the multiple choice.
Yeah, give me the multiple choice.
A was Texas. B was New York. The C was Florida. And D was New Jersey.
Florida.
No, incorrect again.
The fuck?
It was New York.
New York
has had it 4 times.
Is
Texas, Florida, New Jersey.
Hold on. Which ones?
When he said
which New York?
When he said though that WrestleMania 2 counted with 3 locations, that was the giveaway. I think.
Well, that's why I thought one of those was in Jersey.
Rest pass, you sneaky son of a bitch.
Yeah.
You sneaky. I'm not.
And
I'm gonna text Sam.
One of them was in New York. Uniondale, New York, was one of them.
And then you had Madison Square Garden for at least 1 and 110 and 20. Yeah. Fuck.
The very first one was at Madison Square Garden. 2,
10.
It was one of the locations. Then
10.
we had Madison Square Garden again.
20 was at Madison Square Garden as well.
Yeah, Madison Square Garden's had it 3 times.
Yep.
See, I thought that might throw you off a bit.
Sam, hold on. Let me just apologize to Sam real fast for possibly messing up your score. Sam,
I'm texting him right now.
Sam, you trusted me, and I failed you miserably. I apologize.
I even thought that was the easier one. That's why I asked you it. Would you have gotten Shawn Michaels had I asked you that question?
I would have guessed Shawn Michaels. I didn't know that as a fact, though.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
the original
that was
question.
A guess for me.
The original question was actually which state has held the most, and I kind of glanced over it real quick, and I thought California had 5. So I was like, oh, okay, it's close, but California had 6. Would you have guessed California had I not said that had the most, or would you still went Jersey?
I probably still would have went Jersey because I don't think I would
It-
have thought of many of the California ones.
Yeah, Jess actually guessed California, and I said, all right, I got to change this question around right now if you're getting it right, because she, unlike your wife, Greg, does not watch wrestling. She claims that she stopped watching when CM Punk left. So,
she's one of those internet marks. That's cool.
yes.
Sam texted me back, and he said, "Come on, Walt."
Yeah, sorry, bud. Sorry about that, Sam. So Mike, is that all the questions you got? Because
yes.
I'm really excited to kind of jump into our topic this week.
Yeah, well, let's go.
So, video games, wrestling video games. So, it was just announced a few weeks ago. I forget when the actual announcement. June 18th. I have it up right here. And AJ Styles is your cover athlete for WWE 2K19. You get Rey Mysterio as a pre-order bonus, which means he's probably coming back into the WWE full-time soon. And it gets released on October 5th, it looks like. But first off, before we jump into our favorite games and things we like about wrestling video games, things we don't, matches, all that fun stuff, how about the fact that AJ Styles is on the cover of a WWE video game in 2018? I still don't believe it.
Oh God, I'm holding it. I'm holding back. I'm holding back. Can I go on a rant?
Go for it.
Like, all right, I hate it. I hate that he's the cover athlete. 2 reasons. Number 1, it is now apparently, abundantly, and absolutely clear why and how he won the last man standing match against Shinsuke Nakamura, because they're not going to have him drop the belt and then announce him 2 days later that he's the cover athlete of WWE 2K19. That pisses me off that they have a strap on him when Shinsuke should have gone over. Don't tell me he shouldn't have. He should be our champion right now, even though he's injured. The injury wouldn't have happened if they would have put the strap on him. So I'm pissed about that. That's number 1. Number 2, I think, and I read this somewhere else, this is not an original thought, but I agree with it 100%. And I actually echoed it on the podcast of my own that came out yesterday. I think WWE missed the boat on this one. This was the perfect opportunity for you to put a woman on the cover, namely Charlotte. She had the body issue, and she's the best women's wrestler, arguably, on the planet right now. Yes, to your point, I don't get me wrong. I love the fact that in 2018, AJ Styles, at 40-plus years old, is on the cover of a WWE game and not the TNA garbage that was on PS3 or whatever it was.
They were
the
so
Suicide.
bad.
And I don't know. I just think that you have a chance here. Now, I know she doesn't have a belt. I get that. But this is the woman who ended Asuka's streak out of nowhere with a quick tap at WrestleMania, then loses clean to Carmella twice, and then freaking goes pretty much away for a couple weeks. She's doing this thing now. We don't know if she's going to be in there with Becky Lynch and if they're going to do a friendly feud or whatever. But you had this opportunity to ignite the women's revolution on fire, and I think they missed the boat. I think it'll happen eventually, but if they do,
I'm saying it's next year.
Sadly, though, I think that it's going to be multiple women on the cover. I think you're going to have Asuka, Charlotte, Becky, Alexa, and probably like Nia.
No, you're going to have Ronda Rousey.
Ronda Rousey, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're going to have Rousey's going to be the cover. I think
actually literally what I said yesterday, and I forgot already.
My only thing with it is I'm glad they didn't, because I don't want to get force-fed the whole women's revolution thing. I like that I like when it happens naturally. On the main roster, it got force-fed on us. In NXT, it just naturally came up. So when Bayley Sasha main evented that one NXT TakeOver special, that was a natural progression. Their storyline deserved it. It earned it. It made sense on the card, because that was also the card with the Dusty Rhodes, the first annual Dusty Rhodes tournament, and your NXT champion Balor and Samoa Joe were in that. But I love that it's Styles. I think I agree. It would have been a good year, but it wouldn't have been a bad idea. But I think it would have been too force fed for it to work. I think it should be Charlotte if it is the first female on the cover. But I think it's going to be Ronda.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Your whole thing with the title, Greg, and to be honest with you, it's better they showed us the cover now than right before the pay-per-view. Then you'd be sitting there like, I know he's winning.
I didn't even think about that until you just said that, Greg. So
honestly,
really
I haven't either. But yeah, I tend to agree with Walton a little bit. When I seen everybody saying they better put the women, I kind of got that same feeling like, all right, they deserve to be on it, and one of them should be on it eventually. But yeah, it does get to be a little bit too much. It's not a knock on women's wrestling. It's just they're like, oh, this was big. Let's just milk it for everything it's worth. And I'm happy that if 2K had any say in who was actually on it, and if it wasn't just WWE's choice, that they didn't go that route, because it would have been multiple women. It wouldn't have just been one. Like you said, Charlotte doesn't have a title. They would have put multiple women on it. And to be honest with you, they'll probably wait until next year to put Ronda on it with a title.
Well, I'm thinking next year, and the only reason why I say next year is probably going to be better is because I think you're getting at Mania 35, you're getting the women's main event at Mania, Ronda versus Charlotte. That's my.
Yeah,
I think
probably.
I said that in. I think I might have mentioned that in like when we were talking about the WrestleMania stuff a while ago. Yeah. But I think that's going to be your main event of this coming WrestleMania, and then I think it's just a natural progression then that Charlotte then hopefully becomes the cover athlete, but it'll probably be Ronda.
I just think, in my opinion, Madden has done it the last 2 years with T.O. and Tom Brady. They went with women on the cover.
Oh, man.
So why can't WWE do it?
Exactly. If they weren't first, they're not going to do it now.
Yeah, he just missed the boat.
Oh, that was good. That was good. So that's kind of where we kind of got the idea for the topic. So let's start it off with a very easy question for everyone. What is everyone's favorite wrestling game of all time, and why is it WWE No Mercy for Nintendo 64? So, now, what's your guys' favorite games of all times? Like some of the so for me, No Mercy was the hands down. I think it's the best wrestling game they ever put out there. I had so much fun in the Create a Wrestler mode. It brought in all the good stuff, good matches. I think from the WCW NWO series. The 50-person Royal Rumble match was always great because we would play those for hours. Rest Pass over your house.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah, anything 64 we played for hours over our house.
Yeah.
Well, my house.
Yeah. Greg, what about you? What's some of your favorite games?
The obvious is No Mercy. I mean, like,
So that joke actually worked.
The first thing you hear is diggity dog, break it. Like it's iconic. It gets stuck in your head, and it was, to me, the first wrestling game I ever played was Pro Wrestling on the NES, and that game was incredible because as a young kid, I'm like, Starman, the Amazon. It only had 6 wrestlers, but like the Amazon was just the creature from the Black Lagoon. Starman, now I know he was a lucha libre, but I didn't know that back then. I thought he was like a superhero. You had King Corn Karn, which was awesome. King Slender, Fighter Hayabusa, and the Giant Panther. That's quite the roster. But it was a fun game, especially because I had a brother who was 6 years older than me, so one-on-one matches were always fun. They did the 20 count because it was Japanese and all that good stuff, so it was consistent with Japanese wrestling. But wrestling games didn't get great until the N64 era. The WWF games on NES were just hot trash. The Super Nintendo, very limited rosters. There was a couple good arcade-style games. Midway did one that was like almost like a Mortal Kombat-style game. Midway Acclaim did one. I think it was Wrestlemania the Arcade game it was called.
Yep.
That came out on Sega Genesis and the 32X as well. That was okay. It had digitized graphics, kind of like Mortal Kombat, like I said. Kind of fun moves, like Undertaker could shoot ghosts and he could hit you with tombstones.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
It was fun. It's fun to play in the arcades and on Super Nintendo, and I think I actually had the Genesis version. I never had a Super Nintendo growing up, but the first wrestling game that hooked me was actually WCW Nwo Revenge, because that came out before No Mercy, and I went over to my cousin's house, and he had it for his N64, and that's the game where I found out about Juventud Guerrera and Rey Mysterio in a Spider-Man costume and all these really cool, like the Giant, and I had no idea about that I was a WWF guy growing up, so this was like my introduction to WCW as a budgeting young man. So, I mean, the N64 era was great for video games.
Oh, yeah. My first game was, do you remember what was that, the Wrestlemania game, the one you were talking about? Was that your first wrestling game that you remember having?
No, it was NES Pro Wrestling.
Okay.
That was the first one.
That was your first one. What about you, ResPass? Do you remember your first game?
I actually do believe mine was NES Pro Wrestling. Obviously it wasn't mine; it was my older brother's. But I'm pretty sure we had that. If it wasn't that, then it was probably the Super Nintendo. Greg, you just mentioned it, and now it's slipping my mind.
Wrestlemania, the arcade game?
Yeah, I think that might have actually been the first one that was actually my game that I got for a system.
I got into the game later than you guys, because I didn't have any for Super Nintendo or Nintendo. I remember my first one because I remember my mom came home with it, and she got me the game, and she got me the guide that went with it, so I had could do all the finishers and all that stuff. Was WWE Attitude.
For PlayStation 1 or N60?
The PlayStation 1. That game was terrible.
Yeah. It's a good thing I didn't eat a lot of dinner because it's coming up.
That game, I remember the closest that you couldn't do you could create a wrestler, but you could only default the moveset to one wrestler and not jump around. So I would try to make Goldberg in that game, but he had Stone Cold's move list because, why not? Because Goldberg and Stone Cold matched up.
God, what a game!
That game was terrible. Taker and Kane had the exact same moveset. But yeah, that Attitude game I loved it, and it was complete trash. The entrances were terrible because they all just had gold pyro shooting out. And the only one that it made sense for was Gold Dust, because it actually looked like his entrance.
Wasn't it it had the big WWF logo right in the middle? It was like a red background and Stone Cold's really prominent up front.
I think it was.
I believe so.
I thought
wasn't he arms up on the ropes?
Arms
or
up.
something?
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's Triple H and Mankind and all that stuff. That I never had that game. My friend Scott growing up did, and going over his house, I play a lot of that kind of stuff. And I remember specifically at one of his birthday parties, there was a lot of people there, and we were playing tournament style. You play till you lose, and it got to my turn, and I won, and I hated it so much I gave up, and I was like, somebody else can play. I don't even want to win again. This is garbage.
Well, so
that's
something I'm realizing too, because I was looking up some of this. Everything I just mentioned was not for Warzone. It was for Attitude, not Warzone. Or I'm sorry, it was for Warzone, not Attitude. Warzone was my first game, not Attitude. Attitude was the second game that came after Warzone that really made it a lot better. But wow, that was so. A lot of this
still had Stone Cold though doing the pose.
Yeah, it's Stone Cold on the front. The Attitude one was the next one, and that was the one I remember being somewhat good, like a better game than Warzone. It just kind of improved on a lot of stuff. But yeah, so Warzone and Attitude I remember were my first couple video games, and then I got a 64, and then I had Mania 2000 and No Mercy. I don't think I actually owned any of the NWO WCW games. I think RestPass, you actually owned all of them, and that's where I played them at.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the only time I ever played Attitude was probably you probably bought it at Fika's house. That might be the only time I ever played it. But yeah, I'm looking at it now, and I think the reason why, and I know Warzone sucked. I mean, you're saying it absolutely sucked, but it came out the same time that NWO, the Revenge game, WCW NWO Revenge came out. So because that, and since you didn't let me get to speak on my favorite video game, Walt, since you just moved off topic, thank you for that.
We didn't move off topic. We said it was No Mercy.
You did. You did. You asked a whole new question.
Yeah, well.
That's actually my favorite game.
Have you listened to the podcast?
Revenge.
Revenge came after World Tour, though, too. World Tour, actually, I think, came out first. I'm pretty sure. And then it was Revenge. I'm not 100%.
Yeah, no, you're right.
But Revenge, Revenge was the one where they added where, like, everybody had alternate costumes. And I think even Rey Mysterio, you could take his mask off, was one of them, or something like that, if I remember right. But I remember that just thinking that was the coolest thing in the world. But because I always do this, I will have an honorable mention, and I will say one game I always remember and I loved for one specific reason was, I think it was Thunder, WCW NWO Thunder.
Was this the one we were playing over your house a couple weeks ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
The one where you could press the button and they tell you why you should pick them?
Yes.
I never owned the game, and I remember it better than a lot of other ones purely because I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I don't think... I might have played 2 matches and just spent the rest of my time seeing what each character would say.
What console is that on?
It was on PlayStation.
I want to say it was PlayStation. Yeah.
Before that, then it's the predecessor. There was a game on SNES for WCW. It was like the first WCW game. It was on SNES. It wasn't made by Acclaim, Midway, or LJN, but it had the same thing. You could pick when the character select screen. You just hover over them and they would say something. But it was 16-bit. Voice acting, and it was terrible. You could barely make out what they were saying. Yeah, but it didn't have any names, so you actually had to hear what they said, and then if you didn't know who it was, click into the character, then get a bio, and then choose if you wanted to use them or not. And it's like, geez, WCW. Do you guys remember WCW Backstage Assault?
I was looking, so when I was going over this, I was looking up all the games, and that Mayhem and Backstage Assault I did not own because that's when I stopped getting like the WCW games. But wasn't Backstage Assault, when I quickly looked this up before I read anything, didn't it just take place inside
backstage?
Yeah, completely backstage. It was not in a ring.
You could only do backstage brawls. That's all you could do in the game. It was horrible. I never played what did you just say, which one? Outside of that one? The other one?
Thunder? Revenge?
No.
The one you just said.
Oh, Mayhem. I'm sorry.
Mayhem. Yeah, I never played Mayhem, but Backstage Assault, I thought, oh my god, dude, we were in the hardcore era. That was what it was. It was great, the Attitude Era. So I'm like, Backstage Assault, I love it. And then I'm like, all right, let's play one. And you play it, and then you're like, all right, how about we go into the ring? And you can't. So
yeah.
that was just god awful.
Yeah, I remember reading, like, when I saw that, I was like, this, like, I remember there was a gimmick with this game, and I thought that's what it was. Do you guys, like, there you go, that's a great way. Oh, Mike, please, do you have anything else before I possibly change the subject, or you gonna get mad at me?
No, I'll wait until you move on, then I'll tell you forgot to ask me,
thanks,
so don't worry
asshole.
about it.
What do you guys like doing the backstage areas in the wrestling games? Like, do you like? So I forget which SmackDown it was. Like, I remember the season mode or whatever. You would actually walk around backstage and walk up to the wrestlers and talk to them. I thought that gimmick was great. I forget which game that was on. It was one of the SmackDown versus Raws, I think.
Wasn't that Here Comes the Pain? Wasn't that?
I'm looking.
This is what happens when we're not prepared for things.
Well, I didn't go into it. I just thought of it now as Greg was mentioning the backstage assault. I remember that, but
I believe it was either Know Your Role or Here Comes the Pain.
Yeah, I think Here Comes the Pain was always set as the standard bearer for kind of more modern wrestling games. Does that sound about right to you, Greg? Since you are more knowledgeable in the video game space than I think Mike and I combined.
The first like PS2 era wrestling game that I can remember was Legends of Wrestling, and I think that game sucked too. But I actually have it written down here in my notes that I hated all of the SmackDown versus Raws. They tried to make it like an annualized thing, and it spread over a bunch of consoles. But because I never could get into them at all, even like I think I had. WrestleMania X7, I think it was, on like the GameCube with The Rock and Edge,
yes,
like on the cover. And I couldn't even get into that one, and that's my favorite Mania of all time besides 9, which I know is an unpopular opinion, but I love Giant Gonzalez, so deal with it. I don't know. That's like when I
hold on. So Greg, before we go, I think we're gonna have you come back because I want a more deep dive into this. That you're a Giant Gonzalez fan. Like I want to deep dive into.
I'm a huge Giant Gonzalez mark. I love him, and yes, his bodysuit is included in that. Like that, he's got the greatest ring attire of all time besides Papa Shango. Again, deal with it. That's just how it is.
So obviously, like Peachy's not here, and you're kind of filling in that third person this week, and you did the same thing that Peachy does to me every week, and you say something that just takes me by surprise that I don't expect whatsoever to hear. Usually, Peachy says something stupid. Or something very John Madden-like. This is a very informed opinion, and I am I'm blown away by it.
Don't be confused here. What I did say was very stupid, and I'm aware of that. It's just I am a child of the '90s, and listen, I'm 30 years old and I still love Pokemon. I'm 30 years old and I still love wrestling. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's embrace that. It's what makes you you. But when I look back and I look at, and I watch the network, if you look through my search history, there's literally search histories for Papa Shango, Giant Gonzalez, and Virgil. They're the last 3 search histories because I just want to watch matches of those dudes. So that's just I didn't have the figures of any of those 3. I think I got Virgil like later on, but like that's what it was. If I couldn't play with it with the wrestling figures, I wanted to watch them. I had WrestleMania 9 on VHS forever and ever. I don't have it anymore, but now I have the network, so it's on there. And, I know it's unpopular.
Can I ask you a question, Greg? As a fan of We Podcast and We Know Things, do you like Giant Gonzalez the same way you like The Happening? Is that why you like him?
So what Mike means is because it's so good or so bad it's good. I have a genuine love for bad things, so it's not because it's so bad it's good, but it's because whoever thought that one up, and we'll chalk that one up to Vince, but like somebody thought of that and said, let's put that out on the airwaves, and I respect that. It's more than I've done for the business. So, God bless you, Shockmaster, and God bless you, what's his name? The guy who had the hockey skates on.
The Goon? Not the Goon. He was based off The Goon, the movie. Yeah. I forget what the hell his fucking name is.
I can't think of it right now, but like Duke the Dumpster Drozy and all these horrible, ridiculous gimmicks of the 90s and the gobbledygooker. And that's the stuff I love because somebody in a room sat there and said, like, let's do this. Somebody agreed. That's the problem. It wasn't even that the idea happened because we all have bad ideas, but it's that somebody agreed with it. And yes, so to answer your point, sorry for rambling, it is kind of like that. I love The Happening because M. Night was like, let me make the worst movie I could possibly make. And now I think of like wrestling, like let's find a 7'5" Argentinian, put him in a bear suit, shave half of it, and send him out to the ring. Done. And I loved it.
Yeah, I want to deep dive this at some other point. Jesus Christ, now I lost the train of thought. Oh, we were talking about video games, apparently.
You had no train of thought.
Yeah, well,
Giant Gonzalez was never in a video game. I think
is
Papa
true.
Shango was, but I don't think Giant Gonzalez, and that's a travesty. His costume should be unlockable. If it might be, I don't know. I missed a lot of wrestling games along the way, but if his costume is an unlockable piece for a creator wrestler, I'm down, and I'm gonna make him the shortest wrestler possible, so he just looks like an Ewok. I'm totally down.
Yeah, I'm all for
now-
that. That'd be fun.
I can call Walton out here because I've been trying to talk him into doing something. So I'll announce it on here. Not that we're doing it, but there is one game I'm sure they probably have a Giant Gonzalez in. Me and Walton had been talking about possibly, if he finds time, well, I would have to buy it first, Fire Pro Wrestling for the PC. Yeah. We were talking about basically streaming us doing a draft between wrestlers of all time, having kind of like rules to it, you know, only certain amount of current wrestlers, certain amount of this, whatever, doing a draft, and just recording us doing matches over time. So I'm
Craig,
sure Giant Gonzalez is probably in there. And if he is,
it?
Walton will pick him.
Isn't that on Steam sale?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It's like it's only like $7 off or something like that. Not a great sale. Hey, Greg, have you played the Fire Pro wrestling games?
I have not, and it's something that I've actually wanted to do.
So for those that are unaware, the big draw to those this is like the first time, like the original one that came out on Steam, it's just a bunch of random Japanese wrestlers that they just kind of made up for the game. So it's nobody you really know. You just randomly pick someone, like that NES Pro Wrestling game. You just randomly pick these guys. But the community for the game is phenomenal, and they will custom create every wrestler and import them into the game because of the create a wrestler in Fire Pro. You can customize every move, every like little bit, put tattoos on them. Like I downloaded CM Punk. It looks, for the graphics of the game, it looks exactly like CM Punk. It's like a throwback kind of style to like a 16-bit style, I guess, NES wrestling game, but you can just download and import all the current wrestlers, and they, you know, the move sets are perfect. Like I hit a GTS with Punk during a match I was playing before, and I was like, this is so cool. It's definitely worth a pickup, especially if you are tired of, like, so Greg, like you were mentioning it, like I think you were mentioning it, like you didn't get into the SmackDown versus Raw games. I think that's where I kind of fell out of buying wrestling games every year. Just because they seemed like they got a little too complicated for me. And I could sit there and learn it, but it was very hard to like kind of have like a group of people over and say, hey, pick up a controller, let's wrestle, and have fun with it that way. But Fire Pro kind of brings it back to that a little bit because it looks fun, it looks easy to play, and it's a very dumbed down version of a wrestling game, which I love.
Well, I think the new Fire Pro that just got announced is coming out in August. I think they have the New Japan roster.
Yep. That's the first time they have an actual partnership with New Japan. So, and that cover looks fucking sick. Omega, Okada, Naito, and oh god, who's the fourth one? Tanahashi, I believe.
Tanahashi.
Yeah, I believe it is Tanahashi. I want to look this up just to show.
Well, while you look that up, I will say I've never played this game, but I know when I was looking up about it originally, a lot of people love it. A lot of wrestling fans love it for the simple fact, like you said, it not only is it dumbed down, but it kind of makes it feel like it's a real match. Like if I remember reading right, like you kind of can't go in there, punch 6 times, and have a finisher and kind of hit somebody with the finisher. It kind of has the flow of an actual match.
Yes.
And a lot of people say that's their biggest thing they love about it, where it's not you come in and you just kind of button mash and you win because you can't get a punch off. It kind of has a nice flow to it. So that was the most intriguing thing to me, I know, when I was looking up about it.
And I did look it up. It was Tanahashi. So Omega, Okada, Tanahashi, and Naito are the cover athletes for the PlayStation version of it, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool to see. But Fire Pro is really the first like non-WWE sanctioned game that I've purchased in a very long time. I like the I haven't bought an actual 2K version of the. I don't think I've bought any of the 2K versions of the WWE games. I think the last one I bought outright was WWE 13 when Punk was on the cover.
I had 16. 16 was actually a free games with gold on Xbox. That's the only reason I have it.
I think I got 16 for the computer because a friend of mine, he bought a Humble Bundle and had, hey, there's a wrestling code. You want it? Yeah, sure, I'll take it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I treat the wrestling games like I do Madden. I say I'm not buying it next year. I don't buy it. The next year rolls around. I'm like, I didn't get it last year. I might as well. And then I play it a couple times and don't touch it again.
And you treat it the same way like you do Madden, as in you're terrible at it. So that's always great.
Yeah, of course. That's why I sold my PS4.
Exactly.
And then Madden just followed me to PC.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't get away from it.
First time in a decade, yeah. First time in a decade.
I'm very excited for Madden to get on PC, just because I'm getting out of kind of buying games for my Xbox anymore, just because I do more PC. But that's now a whole other topic. I'm actually debating about getting this one because of Styles on the cover. I think that's what.
We're gonna get one next year, and I just can't justify $60. I just can't do it.
Yeah, that's the rough thing about it too.
Not when I have so many other games that are already in my Amazon cart. That's in the last 2 months I've gotten 8 games, and I'm gonna get 8 or 9 more the rest of the year, and I just can't do another one. I just can't do a wrestling game right now. If a lot of them are smaller indie experiences, but a $60 wrestling game, I'll have fun with that for a couple matches, but almost nobody I know is going to have it, so there's no point of playing online. I don't game online like I used to. I prefer single-player experiences. It's going to look like shit and run like shit on the Switch like 2K18 did, so there's no point for me to get it on the Switch.
Fire Pro, if Fire Pro releases a game, Fire Pro would fit perfectly for the Nintendo Switch. I hope at some point they come out for it. It is a perfect game for the Nintendo Switch.
I was thinking back to something you said. You said that you haven't really bought a non-WWE related game in a really long time, and there is a game that came out. I think it was 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. And it was WWE, but it was so far removed from what we expected. It's WWE All-Stars.
Love that game. Fucking love that game.
It's it was a crazy, insane game where everybody was jacked up and these crazy over-the-top finishers and stuff. And it was a lot of fun. I think it kind of got repetitive pretty quickly, and it kind of got a little boring pretty quickly. And then the netcode online was trash. But it was a really fun gimmick, and it was just so far removed from WWE because that was when the PG era really hit. It's a total misrepresentation of WWE at that time, and that's why I love it. So I'm all aboard on that train. Love that game. It's fantastic.
I love it because it's an arcade style type game. It's a very easy pick up, have 4 people in a room, couch co-op type game that you can just pick up and go, and it's really easy to learn how to play. I love that game. I was going to bring that game up at some point. I'm glad you brought it up before I did, Greg. That game, it was so much fun. It was the art style on it was
love
great.
The art style.
Yeah, because it wasn't they weren't really realistic.
No, and it harkened back to the days of the N64 when you could pick up and play. If I had anybody over, just, hey, I got an extra controller, 4 ports, N64, baby, plug it in, let's play. You'll be Jim Ross, and I'll be the cat. And
yes,
it just harkened back to those days where it's you pick up, you play, like you said, sit on the couch, have a good time with a friend or a couple friends, and you pass an hour or two, and then you put it back on the shelf. It collects a little dust till the next time. But it served its purpose, and that's what I love about it. It had a purpose, and it served it very well.
It did.
But that's what actually you referencing that about having the games, you could just pick up and play. Not to get too far off of wrestling video games, but that's actually why I sold my PS4 and I went to PC, because I found myself every year buying games that I would only play with other people, and I'm pretty sure you've mentioned this many times on your podcast, Greg, that paying $60 for a game that I'm never going to want to play by myself and I need friends to be over for. And unfortunately, I'm not 12 anymore where friends are constantly in my house playing games, you pay $60 to maybe play a game once a month, maybe, and that's if they're in the mood to come over and want to play it. Walton actually got me on the Steam years ago, and he told me, he said, if you ever want to go into PC gaming, this is great. You're going to hate yourself because they're constantly on sale. You're going to buy so many games, you're never going to play them. But I'd rather spend $10 on a game that I play a couple times than $60. And unfortunately, Madden, WWE 2K, all those games, at best, they're dropping the 40. If you want a current game, at best they're dropping the 40, or you're getting a game that's outdated that they don't worry about anymore because they just came out with a new one. So I mean, I actually just bought Cuphead. Hard as shit. I tried to play it with a 5-year-old, and I completely regretted that decision right away because I couldn't do it myself, let alone try to walk him through what he's supposed to be doing. And then I found myself listening to him when he was showing me how to beat stuff. So then I felt really old at that time. But yeah, I would never buy a game like that if I had PS4 because I'd be like, I just spent $60 on Madden. It's sitting there. Let me try to play it again and then I play 5 minutes of it, get bored of it, put it down, and go do something else.
So, Greg, you kind of, again, as we continue to jump around, you kind of mentioned this jokingly when, people would come over, they pick up the controllers, you're playing Jim Ross versus the Cat. I was a personal fan of Godfather's Ho from No Mercy.
No Mercy.
Who are some of your guys' go-to wrestlers when you pick up, like, a new wrestling game? Who are you looking for? What type of wrestlers do you normally go to? Stuff like that.
Jeff Hardy.
Nice.
That's it. Jeff Hardy. I always start with Jeff Hardy, no matter what.
Is that because you like doing all the high-flying stuff with him?
He's my favorite wrestler of all time, so it was an easy choice. I mean, there was a game called Legends of Wrestlemania on like the PS3 and Xbox 360. I had it on 360, and actually Fico came over like every day for like a month, and my roommate, Fico, me, and a couple other buddies would have tag team tournaments, and I was Jeff Hardy and the Ultimate Warrior. They were my tag team because they would go perfectly together if they were both from the same era. I forget what I called them, like the Twisted Warriors or something like that.
Not bad.
It was lame. It was very lame, but I remember Fico had
Shawn Michaels and Undertaker.
I believe it. I believe it. I can't remember who. We tried to go one new because you could import the 2K8 roster or 2K9, I forget, into the game, so you could actually have modern mixed with like the old school wrestlers. So we tried to do 1-1. We tried to go one old school, one new school, and I can't remember. I think it was like British Bulldog and I can't remember anymore. It was 10 years ago, which is crazy that it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jeff, I like the high flyers. I like the Jeff Hardy types. I like the. I'm a fan of Lucha Libre style anyway in real life. I don't like the meathead match type deal. Like for me, I'm not a. If you had Mojo Rawley versus Jinder Mahal, I'm turning it off. But if you had like Kalisto versus
Cedric Alexander.
Sure, I'm down with that. I mean, that's something I'm at least more interested in. Even though those two characters don't do anything for me individually, I'd be down to watch that match because I appreciate the style.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I like flippy shit, so I will watch that.
Flippy shit. Yeah. That's right, flippy shit.
I like that. I will do that every day of the week. Respace, who do you normally play as? I'm trying to remember, but I forget.
Kurt Angle. I mean, if I have him in a game, again, he's my favorite wrestler of all time. I'm pretty sure when we did our Mount Rushmore of wrestling, I kind of stuck with a certain type of wrestler. I've always been submission specialist, which is funny because in games I can't stand submissions.
They're the worst.
Because I was always, Ken Shamrock, Kurt Angle, Dean Malenko in the WCW games, I kind of always stuck with those guys because I prefer watching it more than playing as it, but I always seem to go to them in wrestling games.
I usually end up going with RVD. I think is a normal choice for me. But it also depends. Like I'll usually go whoever some of my favorite wrestlers are. Like I do like whenever CM Punk was in a game, that'd be the first match I'd try out. I wanted to get one of the newer ones that had the NXT roster because I wanted to play as Baylor, but I never did just because, like I said, like I didn't buy the game. I haven't bought them, but I was like, oh yeah, I would probably do like a Finn Balor as a like first match. I like guys with kicks for whatever reason. I like kicking with wrestlers. So, but RVD I think kind of was always a standard go-to for me. Or like I would do a Jeff Hardy because actually like we'll get into it later. Swanton Bomb is one of whenever I'm making a custom wrestler, I usually do that as one of my finishers.
I'm putting you on the spot then. You had said you like characters that kick. Give me your top super kick of all time. Who's got it? And no, it cannot be Shawn Michaels.
I like Ziggler's. Mm-hmm. Adam Cole's is really good right now.
There you go. That it's so good.
Well, Adam Cole is literally just a reincarnation of Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
Hopefully without the drug problem.
Yeah. And then the Christian reincarnation.
Yes.
But we have, I mean, like, so what you're telling me is Tamina Snuka does not have the best super kick in the business. That's what I'm hearing.
No. It's shocking enough. I know.
Yeah.
It's hard-hitting facts coming to you from Paperwork Podcast.
Everybody's got a freaking super kick, man.
I like it. I think it's fun. I don't like the Young Bucks, their whole super kick party stuff. I fucking love it.
Yeah, I mean,
I get that it's it makes the move look weaker in general because they busted out. You know who also has a good one? Kevin Owens. I really like it when he pulls out a super kick sometimes.
He's got a good super kick.
Yeah, because he does it not regularly. You see it not that often, and it's never like devastating and never finishes a match. But he, whenever he pulls it out, I always just get excited because I'm like, yeah, super kick by Kevin Owens.
Carmella's got a decent one too.
Harris isn't bad, honestly. It beat Charlotte. It beat Charlotte.
It beat Asuka. It was from behind.
That's right. I'm sorry, Asuka. That's right. Because that fucking made sense.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Video games.
Hey, I agreed with it.
Oh yeah, I too. She is money as a champ. She's fantastic as the champion.
Carmella needed to beat Asuka like with that, but I just hate the way that they finished that match. I thought it was dumb. It should have been a.
I liked it better than a roll up. I liked it better than the roll up.
That just sucks that it's Asuka on the other end of it.
Exactly.
You could have had somebody else in that. But Becky Lynch has been eating pins for 4 years. You could have thrown her in that scene and had Mella go over on her or Natalya or something like that. Well, I know Natty's not really a face, but you chose Asuka, who you're kind of shitting on a little bit. How funny is this? I didn't even think about this until it happened at Money in the Bank, but you had both Royal Rumble winners lose their title matches. And both of them Japanese imports. So it's like, what are you doing to that culture? And then they just signed another one yesterday. Another extremely famous.
Io Schneer. I can't pronounce her name.
But you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. I'm very excited for her because I've watched some of her matches, and she's going to be real good.
And she is. And I'm looking forward to like a Kairi Sane versus her kind of thing. And they gave Kairi Sane the Mae Young Classic. So they put these Japanese wrestlers over, and then they shit on them because who's got the title? Oh, right, Shayna Baszler. Yeah. So, and she's not going to lose it for a while.
Well, it's not even that. Kairi Sane fucking lost to Lacey Evans.
Lacey Evans, clean.
Hey,
yeah.
Clean. Hey, that feud was good.
It was a decent feud.
Lacey Evans actually surprised me during those matches. I mean, she's not going to be anything great. She's the perfect secondary feud, kind of.
She's
never
Natalya.
going to be
Yeah. She's Natalya. Is what she's skilled, but she's never going to be the top.
But she is a great product of the WWE Performance Center, which I love. I love seeing those type of wrestlers come out of there because I didn't know Lacey Evans before. I think she was an actual product of the Performance Center.
Dream, Lars Sullivan.
Yeah.
Dream's the shit though, so let's not even go there.
That's that. I actually am excited for him in a video game to do his entrance.
Hell yeah!
Because I'm hoping that they put in a lot of his tights.
So fine, let's talk about that then. For video games, who are you looking forward to play in a video game that you have never got to play yet?
Adam Cole.
That's me. Actually, Ricochet. I would say Ricochet.
Oh fuck! God damn it! I didn't even think
it's
of that.
Tough. NXT is just so stacked.
That's not even fair. Ricochet's the exact style I like too. Ricochet actually got me into like more watching indie wrestling with him and Will Ospreay's match. The idea of if somehow Ospreay signs with WWE, have a Ricochet Ospreay fight in a video game, because their matches are already video games.
Yeah, they really are.
That would be fun.
Did you see the What Culture Pro Wrestling, the WCPW World Cup, where Ricochet and Ospreay wrestled, and Ricochet wore Eagles, had the Eagles logo on his tights?
Oh yeah, he's got a shirt. I almost bought it. Actually, Pro Wrestling Tees has a sale, and if they still have Ricochet stuff up, I might buy it.
They usually take down, when they sign a WWE, they take it down pretty quick. I hope they still have that stuff up.
But even with that match, I think that WCPW match, the top rope broke, and they wrestled with only two ring ropes, because the top one broke like right before they did their superhero landing in the. I wish shit like that would be in video games, honestly.
With what, the rope breaking?
Yeah,
or the
like
sequential.
Well,
stuff like that?
The sequential stuff would be awesome, like a mini game.
Or synchronized, I guess, is what we're talking about too.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
But like to have a rope break,
more hazards, hazards in general. You know what I mean? Maybe you have the option to come into the match through the rafters, and then never mind. I'm not never mind.
Oh man. And then
that's why Owen wasn't in 2K8.
Yeah, and then you.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Well, then
I have to go now.
Well, then this is not the first time that Owen Hart or Chris Benoit has been mentioned on this podcast, and it won't be the last time.
Yeah.
I will never mention that man's name. The other guy that you just said. He's a disgrace. I'll never say his name.
Yeah. I actually liked playing him in video games too, which does suck in general. Didn't I play him when we played Thunder a couple weeks ago? Yeah,
you did. Yeah, when you came over, you definitely him.
He killed it. What can I say?
Yeah, he made a guest appearance in Mortal Kombat. Good fatality.
Yeah,
good fatality.
Oh man. So before we go into, I guess we're doing the top 3 thing, right, Pass?
Yes.
Before we jump into there, is there anything else, like from a video game standpoint, that we just generally enjoy, we dislike that they do in video games? Your favorite matches? For me, I'll say this: I think the first things I always do is I do a one-on-one match to get the hang of the buttons whenever I get a new game, and then I do a Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble match is just because it's so long, and if you have a couch co-op, like 3 or 4 people over, everyone gets in there. You pick your wrestlers; they're the first 4, but then you just swap out to the other wrestlers throughout the match and see who can last the longest, who has the most throwouts, all that fun stuff. But do you guys have anything like that, to where you have like a tradition that you do in video games?
Pass, real quick too. I don't know. Did you say who you wanted to play as?
Oh no, he didn't.
I don't believe he's been in a game. Ciampa. I love what they're doing with Ciampa, and I would love to play. I love what they're doing with Ciampa, and I love that he hopefully will now be feuding with Aleister Black. So I love that. I love it. I love Ciampa. He'd be the guy I'd play as.
So all 3 NXT guys. So yeah, that's just insane. But I don't particularly care for the gimmick matches in video games, like a ladder match or a cage match, because they're so. It's the same formula to win. Especially a ladder match. Go outside, get weapons, beat the shit out of somebody with a weapon until they're down to nothing, go climb the ladder and win. You can win them either really quick or they take 30 minutes. It's like one or the other. You never have a good, compelling video game ladder match. But I'm with you. I do like a Royal Rumble, too. That's a lot of fun. And it's cool because with a Royal Rumble, picking different characters to see whether it's from a stamina perspective or a moveset perspective, what do you like to play them as? It's a good way to test if you like a character outside of just a one-on-one match.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'll usually pick characters I don't normally, unless like it's some of my favorites. It's like, this is the only person available. All right, I guess I will be Mojo Rawley.
Yeah, I might go a little risque and do a little random action too.
But that's I've kind of am somewhere in between both of you. The Royal Rumble at Walt, you always mentioned Royal Rumble. I enjoy playing it purposely for when I get thrown out, who's going to come in kind of thing. But over the years, I treated the Royal Rumble the same way. If my guy's in it, I wait until I see who would become number 30, and I get thrown out on purpose So then I know I'm getting the 30th character, so I'm the freshest one at the end. It might be cheating.
Yeah,
I
you're a
don't
scumbag.
care. But that's the way I do it. I would keep an eye on who's in and suddenly try to get my ass thrown out right when I see 30s not taken for it. But to go off of matches, I guess, I had to mention GM mode. That's what I do in every single sports game. That's what I love. The fact that 2K has not put GM mode back in it upsets me. And that if that ever gets put back in, I will buy the next 2K game if it ever gets put back in. Because I find myself doing the same thing regardless, even with their universe mode or whatever it's called now. You know, drafting guys, putting them on both sides, stuff like that. So that's the one mode that I miss that I would go back and play if I could, and I wish that they would bring back.
I never got into the GM mode stuff. It was always too complicated for me to fantasize or like the universe mode. I'm like, I really don't care that much to figure that out. So I never did it. But yeah, you always loved, because you were always also the guy that created every single fucking wrestler that wasn't in the game.
Yeah, family members, everything.
Yeah, Greg, did you?
I created my nephews the one time, everything.
Greg, did you used to do that in wrestling video games? Like, so back when it was WWE versus WCW, create the WCW guys in the WWE games.
Because I'm such a gamer of everything, I tended to just stick with a roster because outside of creating my friends at quarterback, wide receiver, and running back in Madden, I wasn't a creative guy. I never created a skater in Tony Hawk. I never created wrestlers that much. I never created really that much stuff in general. And I'd like to think I'm a creative person, but I guess I just proved that I'm not. I don't know. No, I didn't really do that.
Well, it's funny to go off what you just said, because Walton said I always created guys. I've also, in NCAA football, have created the whole North Catholic Falcons team with all of our friends. It didn't matter if they went to North or not. And I'm talking 22 guys, 24 maybe, because we probably had a kicker and a punter. Every year I got NHL, I used to create a full team. And literally, I would sit there with Excel and be like, all right, well, you know, Jared Culver's probably the best hockey player out of our friends. He's up here. All right, who's next? I'd get correct heights and everything. Like, that's how deep I'd go into it. Play one game, never play that game again. I just spent 3 months creating guys for nothing.
When
yeah,
NCAA was out, didn't you used to name all the update the names of the players, or was that Figo?
Me and Timmy used to, but then when online became more, I guess, prevalent in games, you used to be able to just download them.
Yeah. But yeah, I did not do that. I would create, like, I remember No Mercy, I would create a wrestler in there, and that was the one I like hawked on to where I had every single punch I had it custom created, stuff like that. Now I just feel like in a lot of games it's like it's too complicated to possibly create a wrestler. And I'm like,
much. It's so deep.
It is. But it's awesome, but I'm like, man, I don't feel like doing this.
You know, it'd be fun.
I could play Fortnite instead of creating this wrestler.
It'd be fun to create wrestlers from today in No Mercy.
I've seen that.
Have a lot of fun.
There's I've seen online of someone has a ROM downloaded that they did that.
Did they?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this earlier when I was looking up stuff for the topic and just trying to do some researches. I would love for them to re-release No Mercy, or even that No Mercy style game on the Nintendo Switch with a current roster. I think that would make so much money. It wouldn't be it'd be ridiculous, and that it would be so much fun because everyone talks about how that is one of the greatest video games for a wrestling standpoint of all time. Is that something you would buy?
I just I'd give it a shot. I don't know. I never thought I'd get a Pokemon game on my television either. So anything's possible. I think, of course, I would. I mean, I would love to see a blocky Adam Cole who can't put two fingers up on each end. He just puts the whole hand up for both. And, the Titantron just flashes still images like it did for the N64.
Oh, God, I forgot
that'd be fun. I think, but nowadays, I almost get my wrestling fix out of something like Smash. I almost feel like because Smash is just such a fun fighting game and it's so different than every other fighting game where it doesn't have the damage counter going down, it's got the percentage going up, that I almost feel like, and you could do tag teams and team battles and stuff, I just feel like I get my wrestling fill from a video game space, at least from that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of in a similar boat. And like Smashing isn't as overly complicated, and it's a lot easier to get a group of people to say, "Hey, do you want to play Smash?" instead of, "Hey, you want to play 2K19?"
I had one of my groomsmen came down. He lives up in Boston, and he's a huge wrestling fan. Shout out to Rob Lang, and he got me back into wrestling. I stopped watching wrestling from 2003-ish to 2009, maybe 2010. Like, I took a ton of years off, and then he came over, I don't know, back in like 2011, I'd say, and it was like, you got to get back into it. You got to get back. I was like, no.
Was it after the pipe bomb, if it's 2011?
So that's what sparked it. So he sent me this video, and he sends me the pipe bomb, and I watch it. I liked CM Punk a lot, and my buddy's in the CM Punk DVD, and it's a cool thing, and it was cool to watch, and I was like, okay, cool, it's a fun promo. I like that promo, but it's still boring to me because I think John Cena is trash. I like him a little bit more now, but I still don't love him, and so I was like, what is this? And then he comes over in like 2014. I just moved in with my now wife, and we're hanging out. He's staying for a couple, I think like 4 days, and he gets the network, and he puts on NXT, and he puts on the Takeover, the first ever Takeover, I think it was, and I was blown away. And I was like, this is what the product is nowadays, and that's when I jumped back in, full bore, ready to roll. So there was a lot of time I missed out on that whole boat, which is probably why I never played the Raw versus SmackDown games, because they were all in that era.
Exactly.
So it just didn't match up for me.
Yeah, those games, I wasn't a big fan of them. I would get it'd be like the Madden thing. I'd get it, I'd play it a couple times, and then that's it. Because it was an easy, like, you know, my mom would ask, "Oh, do you want a game for Christmas or something like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, give me the wrestling game." Very easy from that standpoint. But to go back to Greg, like you mentioned, how creative you are as a person because of all the wrestlers you created throughout all these games. Mike, you had a top 3 thing you wanted to do with career wrestler finishers or something, right?
Yeah, I love hearing that right before we're about to do the top 3 is that you barely created anything in any games. That's nice to hear. Well, again, you do the top 3 in We Podcast and We Know Things with Greg Hull and Sam Maturo. Since I don't know that we actually
the best
said
damn voice in the
we
business.
talked about Sam multiple times. For those that don't know, they are co-hosts, I guess, right? You would consider yourself co-hosts. Like, Walton doesn't like to take the host title for us, so we call ourselves co-hosts.
I'm a host. I'm fucking narcissistic as shit. This is my podcast.
Sam hasn't necessarily run the ship yet, but we've talked about it, and it's something he's interested in doing for an episode. So at this time, we are still 50-50 co-hosts, even though I've hosted all 120 episodes.
Including the ones he was not there for.
Including the ones he's not there.
No sour grapes at all. No sour grapes at all.
Yeah, that is insane that I have been on, oh God, how many episodes have we done? We've done 121 episodes, including the one we're going to release tomorrow morning. So it's like, I've been on all 121. He's missed 4 or 5 or 6, so he's been right up there with me. Like I said, we've been talking about him doing some hosting jobs, but we'll see if that goes anyway.
I consider myself a co-host because sometimes Walton gets out in left field, and I have to kind of reel him in a little bit. You know, he gets a little off topic, so because I didn't want to do what he's doing right now. I like being the one critical. You know, like, Walt, you're doing an awful job. Let me take over, which I will do right now. So,
thank you.
What Greg and Sam do each week, they do a top 3. It's normally related to one of the topics on their show. This week, I wanted to, instead of doing the super obvious, your favorite top 3 wrestling video games, because I assumed our list would look somewhat similar.
I think we already talked about them, like, as the conversation just kind of happened.
Yeah, because we don't have any structure to this show at all, I assumed at some point we would go over this. Yeah, so either we would start the show at the top 3, and it would be a 50-minute top 3 segment, or we went somewhere different. So my idea was to do your top 3 favorite finishing maneuvers for creative wrestlers or calls. So, Greg, we'll start with you since you never create anybody. We'll start with what you would have done for finishers had you created wrestlers.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all created a couple. I know, though, for a fact, though, when I would go through the list, it's just there's so many options. And in, like, the newer games especially, it's just so deep. I don't want to customize how many freckles my guy has. I just want to throw on face A, face B, or face C, and then give him a body build and then a move set. My number 3 would be, it's actually Cesaro's swing now, but in the old moves it was called the Big Swing in WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy. And the only reason I liked it, and it is you pick him up by the legs, you spin around 3 times, but the reason why I liked it so much is when you got done, you were dizzy and you fell over. And I thought it was just so funny that you perform your finisher and then you just eat shit. And I just loved it.
All right. Walt, your number 3?
My number 3 is probably, guys, I was debating about this, probably be the GTS. I'm a big Punk fan. I always like it as the finisher. I think the last time I actually created a custom wrestler, I did use the GTS. I try to, now this list is, my number 1 is, but I do try to look for moves that are not like a current wrestler's finisher. Yeah. Like something that they might have just put in there that's probably like one of the indie guys, like a Canadian Destroyer or something like that. Nobody's using a Canadian Destroyer in WWE. So I'm like, all right, maybe that's something I would try to make a finisher. But I remember the last time I created a wrestler, I had the GTS as his finisher for that one.
Okay.
What about you, Respass?
My number 3 would have to be the F5. And Walt, you know this better than anybody. The reason why I loved F5 is because...
Fuck you for years of abuse that you put me through as a child, giving me this goddamn move.
What we used to do, especially, I guess it was around college, like the beginning of college years, when Fico had moved to Jersey, he always had these things called foofs, which they're basically bean bags, but they're not beanbag chairs. They're filled with feathers or whatever the hell was in them. So as we got older and I realized I can lift Walton up pretty easily, I used to think it would be funny to give him the F5 on foofs at Fico's house. F5's in his pool. And my most famous F5, Walt, was not to you. I love this story. We used to have a hot box growing up when the house I grew up in. We used to have a hot box in my parents' room, so everybody would come over our house to watch wrestling. My dad is known to drink a little bit.
Has a few cocktails.
Even though he usually has work in the morning. He was super drunk one Sunday coming home while we're all sitting on his bed watching wrestling, and he slurred something, and I thought it'd be funny to F5 him. So I pick him up. Everybody gets off the bed, and I F5 him on the bed, and as his legs are flailing in the air, he screams, "I have work tomorrow." We land on the bed snaps in half, broke down the side. Funniest thing ever. I'm pretty sure we laughed instead of checking to see if he was all right. But yes, that's my famous F5. That's why it's number 3 on there, because I used to enjoy giving it to Walton and my dad.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's bravo. That's good. That's good work.
Oh man,
that's funny. My number 2 would be, it's a generic one. It's called the power bomb to facebuster, as the official terminology.
I hate you. I hate you so much. I hate you so much.
Good. You pick them up, it looks like a normal power bomb, but instead of power bombing them down, you throw them forward, catch their head, and give them the old X Factor. And I absolutely thought that would be devastating to see in real life. I can't remember any wrestler that had that. I'm sure it's been around. Not off the top of my head, I can't think of it. But that would be absolutely devastating. And it's fun when you're Jeff Hardy, you change his finisher, and then you set up Yokozuna, and you do that to him, because that's ridiculous. And I love it.
Oh, man, that is... Yeah, I'm going to laugh about this hard. So my number 2 would be the Swanton. I didn't like doing high flyer moves for wrestlers, because it would always usually mean you would have to be in the ring to do the move. Like, so if if I have a finisher, I can't do it like backstage or anything like that. I know there were some games that would let you, but not all of them. But the Swanton, I always came back to as a move I would want to do, just because I was a big Jeff Hardy fan. even though I did use Rob Van Dam a lot as my first one, I love the flip in the air. So that's why I never did the 5-star, because there was no flip in the air. But Hardy Swanton was always a move I would do. So that'd probably be my number 2. Russ pass?
My number 2 would have to be, I guess, called the Fisherman Underhook Suplex, the Perfect Plex, if you want to get it that way. Purely for, I guess, a simple reason would have been Mr. Perfect. It was his move. Nobody really attached onto that move until Michael McGillicuddy, a.k.a. Curtis Axel, came up. And even now, I don't know that he really uses that move as often as he did. But I always enjoyed that move. To be honest with you, I don't know why. I don't know that I can really give a real
It's a very
reason
simple
for it.
move. It's a very simple move. It's very quick to hit in a game, and it usually comes with a pinning to pin them right afterwards, so you can get the match done real fast.
That's true. And I think a lot of times, most of the moves that weren't used by guys, you almost look at it and you're like, you need to find the perfect person to do this. I think most people can do the Fisherman Underhook, whether you're a cruiserweight or a big guy.
I like that little subtle, the perfect move for the perfect plex. That's real subtle, Mike. Great job there.
Yes. You're welcome. You're welcome.
That anything to a pinning combination was always fun as a finisher in a wrestling game, because it took you a goddamn forever to learn how to even pin. Like the C down button in N64. Really? Like that's how you're going to pin somebody? Select on the NES controller, for real? So anything with a pinning, I'm not even going to lie to you. Like I was saying earlier, my buddy Rob came down, and the point of that whole story wasn't even that he got me back into wrestling. It was that he never played No Mercy before.
Oh, wow.
So I have it. So we were upstairs in the guest room where he was staying, and I was like, dude, I got to put this game on. You got to check it out for real. So he'd heard of it. He'd never played it. So we put it on, and he gets obsessed with the Diggity Dog, of course, because that's fantastic. And as soon as we're done this show, I'm going to text him just Diggity Dog, and I can't wait for his response. But he couldn't get the hang of it, and he was like, I hate this. This sucks so bad. And I look back, and I was like, okay, I have this nostalgic, fantastic kind of
love for the
idea of this game. Yeah. And as somebody going into it cold in 2017 at the time, does it suck? Does it hold up? And I try to separate myself from the nostalgia, of course I think it's good because it's what I played growing up, and it doesn't really hold up that well.
I played it
kind of.
I want to say I played it within the last year, and it is terrible.
Yeah,
it's so bad now. Nowadays, it is bad.
It doesn't hold up, and so it's like, okay, do I? I can see his point, and he threw the controller down. He's like, if you ever play this with me again, I'm just going to go back to Boston.
Hold on, I'm upset if he's throwing down the controller, because that's a Nintendo 64 controller. You can't just go out and buy those, man.
I have like 12 of them, so I can spare one.
Ah, nice. That's real good.
It's a shame. It's a shame. You shouldn't. I think it's like a rule of a third. If you have, I have about 1/3 the amount of controllers that I have years in my life, and that's a shame. It shouldn't happen that way.
Oh man! All right, Greg, what is your number one finisher that you would give a wrestler?
You already said it. It's the Canadian Destroyer.
Oh man, yes.
It's the best finishing move I've ever seen in my life.
It's
well done.
Yes, Petey Williams.
Petey
Williams does it beautifely.
And that's the first person I had ever seen do it.
Oh yeah, same here.
And just watching him on YouTube when YouTube was when YouTube was in its infancy, and there wasn't the sidebar of a million other Canadian destroyers, and that's the one that you knew. And I just go back to the same video of him doing it over and over. I became obsessed with that move, and I'm sure it's out there somewhere in some wrestling game that it's a finisher option. So while I have never created somebody who had that finisher, I have to assume that if I could, that's the one I'd go to. Frickin' insane move.
Love it. So, speaking of mentioning, Greg, you mentioned my number one. The power bomb to the facebuster.
Yeah, baby.
I was a big fan of X-Pac growing up. Loved the X Factor.
Yeah, you were.
And then, I agreed with that. He didn't make any of my Mount Rushmores, but
He should have.
He might have. Well, no, because then I saw him in the China video, and that just kind of ruined my childhood a little bit. But He did not use the X Factor in that movie, which I'm upset about. But no, so that was my No Mercy character. That was the finisher that he had, the power bomb to the face buster, because it wasn't just a straight face buster. It was a little bit more added to it, to the power bomb to throw him out and drop it down. And yeah, it's very similar to what you were saying, Greg. It's funnier when you have smaller guys doing that to bigger guys, because like in the like No Mercy in those games, like they have it now to where it's like, oh, you can't just pick up Big Show for a vertical suplex if you're Rey Mysterio. That doesn't physically work, and they stopped allowing that. But in the earlier games, you could pick them up. They did have some of the weight stuff in No Mercy, because I do remember that they had like the weight classes, light heavyweight, and then heavyweight, and I think even like super heavyweight. But the finisher always went through, regardless. So I remember my guy was always smaller, doing it to like the Big Show and shit like that, and that was always just fun. So my number one was the power bomb to the face buster. Good, Respass, what do you got?
Right.
What's yours?
Well,
was it said already?
No. Do you think you could guess it, Walt? What it would be? It's very, very common.
I don't know. I can't think of.
It would be the ankle lock.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
The ankle lock. I loved Ken Shamrock. I love Kurt Angle. It's the common thing between the two. Plus, at one point in my life, I thought I was a backyard wrestler, which was basically
let's not even bring that up.
me and two of my friends in a backyard having his older cousins beat the shit out of us, and I thought I was a backyard wrestler. But at one point, me and my brother had a match. I remember Chris Lunn, his backyard. We thought we would have hardcore matches. We walked all around K&A looking for stuff to throw in a cart. Nobody ever used any of it. They were afraid to. Me and my brother thought it'd be funny to do it. It got very ugly very quick. He hit me with stuff I didn't want him to hit me with. I put him in an ankle lock, had him in tears. He did not tap. And they had to stop us from wrestling. But I've always, again, Ken Shamrock, Kurt Angle, I like both of them. I know it's not as creative as you guys, but yeah, I've always went to the ankle lock.
Fair enough. Not bad. So, I like that. That was fun. And like we mentioned earlier, Greg on his podcast, they do this every week. Like the one I was just listening to was you guys did top 3 characters that might appear in the next season of Breaking Bad.
Next season of Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul, thank you. I've never saw Breaking Bad, but it was just interesting to hear what you guys were saying on this.
We go deep into the lore of,
yes.
of Breaking Bad to see who will come to Better Call Saul season 4
Yeah.
because they say a big character's coming. So.
Yeah, and when you said it, like you're like number one. I've never seen it, so I have no idea. It was just like some random person that I don't even think was ever in Breaking Bad.
No, they were never in the show. They were mentioned one time in one episode by one character, never again. But it made so much sense that I think that it was the obvious number one. And anybody who's like deep into Breaking Bad as I am, like there are a few shows that I love more than Breaking Bad. I'd say Degrassi is one of them. But Breaking Bad to me is the best. It's the best show ever on non-premium, basically on cable television. I think it's the best show of all time. So it's gonna take a lot to change my mind on that one. So I'll go deep on the Breaking Bad lore.
But yeah,
it's so worth investing in.
Yeah, you guys go over a lot of that. So, as we've been saying all throughout the show, Greg and Sam are the hosts of We Podcast and We Know Things. Greg, you want to talk a little bit more about your podcast before we wrap up for this week? Kind of what stuff you have coming up, maybe some of maybe what was some of the favorite episodes that you guys have recorded so far, things like that.
121 of them. Craziness. Oh, my favorite episodes are when Sam's not there. So, and there's plenty of them. So, that bastard. So,
you said 4.
No,
you said there's only 4.
I think there's like 5 or 6. It's crazy. Whenever we have a guest on the show, we kind of have to go around their schedule. So if Sam can't make it, because he's the one who does the driving, we do it generally around my house. So he's the one who has to do the drive. Plus, I work down the street from where I live. So if somebody says I can do 1 o'clock on a Wednesday. I can shoot home for my lunch break, do it real quick, and go back to work. He can't. So I understand. He's had a legitimate reason for almost every time. He knows what I'm referring to when I say almost. But basically, we are basically like your single source for all of your nerdy news, basically gaming, TV, movies. I said the word basically 4 times. Wrestling, comics, everything in that kind of pop culture, nerd culture realm. There's a tagline I like to use. It's called, we basically spread the good word of nerd one episode at a time, copyrighted. I like to have recurring segments as often as possible. So we do the top 3s, we do the trivia, we do the picks of the week. We have started a couple other things where we changed the format of the show recently, where we put all the biggest stories of the week up front. You get your juice. If you feel like sipping the rest of the can, you can do that a little bit after we do like a little bit of a commercial break. We're on a couple different podcast networks, the Weeby Geeks Podcast Network and the ESO Podcast Network. So check us out on those networks. There's 27 shows on the one and like 29 on the other. So we're really happy to be a part of that big family. What else? We do interviews with a ton of guests. We just finished our 25th interview yesterday. That'll be going up tomorrow, which is for you guys yesterday. It'll be going up Monday. Where we went downtown to South Philly to No Hope Records, to the studio there, and did a live interview with one of the owners of No Hope Records, and a second interview with Shane Henderson of Valencia and Promise of Redemption. So for anybody listening in the Philadelphia area or that was in that kind of emo scene, you should know who that is. Most guests we have on are in the music space, like bands we loved growing up. The Early November, Hidden in Plain View, Jukebox the Ghost, May, Hawthorne Heights. Just all these awesome bands from growing up. But we branch out a little bit. We had Jonathan Sheck, who was Jimmy from the Wonders on That Thing You Do, and DC Legends of Tomorrow. He played Jonah Hex. So we had him on the show. We had a game developer, Matt Papa from Inti Creates. He's a localization director. They did like Mega Man 9 and awesome games like that. Mighty Gunvolt Burst. We are having, if you guys remember, we're all around the same age. Do you guys remember the show on Nickelodeon growing up called Nick Arcade?
Yes.
Yes,
we have Phil Moore, the host of that show, coming on the podcast in 2 weeks.
Jesus Christ!
We're like infinitely excited about that. That was a long time coming. I had gone back and forth with him for a while before we were able to get something together. Oddly enough, I gave him 3 dates I couldn't do, and he picked one of the 3 dates that I couldn't do anyway. So I'm making it work. It's cool. So we're really happy with that. We do some over the phone. We go out to venues. I work with a couple companies that give us video games before they come out, so we do game reviews. I just recently relaunched our website, wepodcastandweknowthings.com. So we were kind of looking for writers. Mike said you wanted to write, so RestPass is going to be joining us to do some writing for the site.
Yes.
So always looking for that kind of content if anybody's out there wants to do that. Follow us on Instagram at WePodcastAndWeKnowThings. Follow us on Twitter at WePodAndWeKnow. Search us out on Facebook, facebook.com/WePodcastAndWeKnowThings. And you can listen to us on any platform. We're on over 30 different podcast platforms to listen to. Like I said, we just passed 25,500 downloads today, and we're doing our 121st episode tomorrow, even though we technically haven't hit episode 100 yet, because all the interviews we do are bonus episodes. So, actually, if I might, one more thing. I'm, like I said to you, Walton, earlier, I'm a huge fan of bad things. And one of them is The Room. It's my 3rd favorite movie of all time. And we actually had an actress from that movie on the show last Wednesday, Robin Paris, who played Michelle, a.k.a. Chocolate Girl, on The Room, from The Room on the show. It was super awesome. We had her on. That's our latest bonus episode before the No Hope Records one goes up. And I can't thank Sam enough for being an awesome co-host over the last 2 years. Can't thank anybody who's listened, subscribed to us, taken a chance on us, given us partnerships, work with us from studio, giving us some headphones, and so, like I said, those game developers and publishing company and publicists and all these awesome people that have helped the show along the way. Really am thankful for everybody that takes a listen. We hope you enjoy it, and I hope you decide to check us out, because I hope you wouldn't be disappointed.
I definitely enjoy it.
That right there. I'm sorry to cut you off, Walt. That's how it's done.
I know.
That's what I couldn't do at Stone and Key Winery when I got asked. I was not prepared for it. So that's how it's done. That's it. I was prepared to say our
most basic
website.
question.
That was about it. I couldn't remember my Twitter handle. All right.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, it is honestly a great podcast to listen to, just because for me personally, I live and breathe everything that you guys cover. So it's great to just hear what your guys' opinions are about stuff, new video games coming out, like the E3 one, like listening to Sam geek out about Devil May Cry was awesome. Just because I was like,
so pumped.
I'm pumped too, because I haven't played a Devil May Cry in years, and I'm like, this looks like Sam's getting me excited. So definitely great. It's awesome, like especially from the wrestling side of things. That's what we kind of like the most here. So we're sure, when PG gets back, he's going to probably deep dive and listen to all the wrestling segments to help improve his knowledge.
Absolutely. He'll be asking us questions about guys we were talking about. I mean, we're prepared. PG, yeah. He prepares like no other.
Yes, like no one else.
I do have to ask a question real quick. Greg, The Room. Mm-hmm. You always reference The Room, and then I'd seen you kind of promoting that bonus episode. That is not the newest The Room, right?
That movie is just called Room.
Okay. That's. Yeah. I always, for some reason, every time you reference The Room, I was picturing Room.
No,
until
this is the 2003 cult classic from Tommy Wiseau, who basically made the worst movie of all time. James Franco just did a film called The Disaster Artist earlier this year or late last year, basically recounting The Room's story of how it was made and how it is the worst movie of all time. And I think it is the worst movie of all time, which to me makes it one of the best because, again, this guy who we don't know his age, we don't know where he's from, we don't even know if Tommy Wiseau is his real name. He has infinite amounts of money that we don't know how he got it. He pours over $6 million into this random film that takes place in like 3 different locations, and it's the worst acted, worst written, worst edited, worst everything movie, and it's so brilliant when it comes together into this 1 2-hour ball of goodness that you'll watch it over and over and over and over again, and you can't get enough. Sam refuses to watch it because he doesn't like bad things. He doesn't like his time being wasted. I love my time being wasted. So it's just I can't talk about that movie enough. How good it is. It's so friggin' brilliant.
Just a sample of what you're going to get on We Podcast and We Know Things, I think, and that is fantastic. So let's kind of wrap this up. So video games. Are you guys getting 2K19 when it comes? Nope. Mike.
It purely depends on what they announce for the game, but if it's basically a reboot of this year, unless all of NXT is in it, I'd say no.
Yeah, same here. I will probably see what it looks like for the Switch, and make my decision there. But yeah, I'm probably in the same boat. I'm not going to get it this year.
I can help you out. You're not getting it if you're waiting for the Switches.
Yeah.
If it doubles the frame rate of 2K18, it would still suck. So I'm staying far, far away from 2K19 on the Switch.
Yep.
Far, far away.
Yep. I'm going to just try to get more into Fire Pro. I think that one has a lot more options and just seems generally fun. So I think that's it for this week. Next week, we are also going to have a special guest host. I doubt that week's host is going to match up to Greg's standard. That was
I
set.
can guarantee you he will not match up to Greg's standard.
His name was mentioned. Our buddy Matt Fico, he's going to join us next week. So he's excited. I talked to him. We're going to let him pick the topic for next week, but we still haven't, figured that out yet. But definitely take a listen to that one because if you are a fan of car wrecks, that's what next week's going to be.
No, dude. The big dog's awesome. The Fico power play. He was on my old sports talk show once. It was awesome.
Yes.
He was on my TV show when we had a TV show together in college.
And he was terrible on that too.
I will say I fully expect for us to find out what the topic is the same time as the listeners, and you'll find out 2 days after it. So
yes,
I fully expect us to find out the day of what he wants to talk about. So I'm excited for that part of it.
I have faith in the Fico.
I do too. I do too. He's going to do great. But I was just thinking. I was like, I think I still have his first episode of what was it, Philly Sports Talk Live, or what was the what was it?
Sports Talk Philadelphia.
Sports Talk Philadelphia. His first episode that he was on there, he was so awkward. It was so funny.
He actually gave me my break on that same show. He let me come on it, and I was like the hockey guy, and so of course the first thing we talk about is the Sixers, and they were probably my 5th out of 5, including the Union, and the Union weren't even around back then, and so like. I remember he kicks it over to me for my first ever thing I ever said on any airway ever, and he goes, "Greg, what do you think about that?" And I said the phrase "I think" 7 times in a minute. And
nice.
He never kicked it back to me. But then later on, he actually gave me the show. I took over for him on that very show, and I ran it for a couple of years. So shout out to Fico. I owe a lot to him.
Yeah. So he will be he'll be joining us next week. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to get Fico on here.
I kind of agree.
And then next week, the week after, we'll be back. Peachy will be back, and
sadly. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess until that's it. Greg, anything else you want to say before we go? Thank you again for joining us this week. We really do appreciate it. It's nice to have someone on the show that knows how to be a host and can communicate a lot better than me. So thank you for that.
No, thank you guys for letting me on, having me on. I always appreciate doing guest spots on other shows. My big podcast PSA, my idol of interviewing and doing this stuff is Sean Evans from First We Feast. I try to basically emulate myself after him. He's fantastic. But something that I believe in myself that I hope other people emulate from me is spread the good word of podcasts. Don't be one of those people that doesn't talk about other podcasts on your podcast because you're afraid to lose listeners to it. If you have good content, people will come and people will come back. So never be afraid to spread the good word of podcasts, and never, ever, ever be afraid to shamelessly promote yourself and plug your show to people, because you do it for a reason. You have passion behind it, and that even goes outside of the realm of podcasting. Whatever you do that makes you you, shout it from the rooftops, because you're the only one that can say that you do it. So be weird, be original, be you, and please support podcasts.
Man, this is the most positive episode we've had. Usually it's me just shitting on Mike and Peachy through the entire thing. So thank you for that, Greg.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. But so with that being said, I guess until next week, everybody, thank you for listening. Greg, this is a tradition we have on our podcast where I do an awkward outro.
He's done the outro 6 times right now, in case you haven't noticed.
Yeah, we keep a track. We keep a live track going.
Hey, do you remember you haven't asked Greg, Pikachu or Eevee?
We were going to talk after that.
Okay, at the show.
I mean, it's Eevee, so let's just
okay. We have to exchange friend codes then, because I'm getting Pikachu, so that way we can get exclusives.
It's done. It's because it's not Raichu, right?
That's 1,000% right, because Pikachu's an asshole, and the Pikachu from the anime refused to evolve. So fuck that, because Raichu's one of my favorite Pokemon.
Raichu's mine. I'm actually, we're on a Skype session. I'm holding up my
Surfing Alolan Raichu. There you go.
Little figure right up next to my desk. So with that being said, we will catch you guys next week. Again, thank you for listening. Have a good week, and we will see you guys later.